The waiter brought the check hidden in the bread basket. I hadn't touched the sourdough roll, but I lifted it anyway, more out of habit than hunger. And that's when I saw it. Folded once, tucked between the napkins. Not a receipt, not a fortune cookie message. A handwritten note. On hotel stationery. Room 214. Tomorrow. After 8. I'll leave the door unlocked. My pulse hit like a drum. She was sitting right across from me, still buttering her asparagus like we hadn't just shared silence for 15 straight minutes. She didn't notice I'd found it. Or maybe she did and didn't care. I didn't speak. I didn't show it. I just slid it under the plate like it burned. She reached for her wine, took a slow sip, and then looked me dead in the eyes. And said, clear as day, "You were never supposed to find that." No flinch. No panic. Just a confession disguised as a shrug. She went right back to her asparagus like we weren't in a public place. Like she hadn't just detonated my brain with 9 words. I didn't ask who it was for. I didn't ask if this was the first time. I didn't ask anything. I just stood up, reached for my jacket, and walked straight out the door. Without one single word. The valet was confused. "Leaving so soon, sir?" he asked, jogging toward me with a forced smile. I didn't even look at him. Just shook my head, handed him a random bill from my wallet, and walked into the street. My phone buzzed before I crossed the parking lot. Once. Then again. Her name. Voicemail. Another text. I kept walking. Past the cars. Past the lot. Toward nowhere. I didn't even feel the cold until the 3rd block, when the wind finally bit through my shirt and into my spine. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just walked like a ghost with a heartbeat. All I could think about was the handwriting. It wasn't hers. Too elegant. Too masculine. Whoever he was, he had expensive taste in pens. Smooth ink. Bold lines. She hadn't even bothered to hide it in her purse. It was meant to be found. Or it was meant for someone else. Someone who would have sat at that same table, lifted that same roll, and smiled at the note. Either way, it wasn't meant for me. I ended up at a bus station. No plan. No bag. Just my keys, wallet, and a jacket too thin for the weather. I bought a one-way ticket to anywhere that wasn't her. I still haven't told anyone. Not my brother. Not my friends. Not even my boss. I think if I say it out loud, it becomes real. But that note was real. And the sentence she said, that one sentence, was the last thing I'll ever hear from her. At least, that's what I thought. Until the man from room 214 showed up at my apartment the next morning, with a story I wasn't ready for. I barely slept that night. The motel room I'd stumbled into felt like a holding cell, not a place to rest. The mattress creaked with every breath, and the old air conditioning unit hummed like it was trying to drown out my thoughts. It failed. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the note again. Room 214. After 8. The words burned like they'd been etched into the back of my eyelids. But worse than the note was her voice. Calm. Empty. Not a shred of guilt when she said, "You were never supposed to find that." I woke up before sunrise, mouth dry, head pounding from nothing but stress. I wasn't even sure where I'd parked my car, or if I wanted to find it. I checked my phone, 7 missed calls from her. 5 texts. 2 voicemails. I didn't open a single one. Instead, I grabbed my jacket, shoved the motel key under the pillow, and walked out into the early morning haze. I didn't know where I was going, but that didn't matter. Anywhere was better than the place I came from. I wasn't ready to face home. Or her. Or even my reflection in the mirror. I felt like a man who had been stripped down, one truth at a time, until nothing remained but the echo of someone gullible. Pathetic. I thought I'd spend the day driving aimlessly again. Maybe hit a diner. Pretend to exist among strangers. But fate had other plans. By the time I returned to my apartment complex, I saw him. At first, I assumed he was a solicitor or some guy waiting on an Uber. But something about the way he stood near my door, hands clasped, body still, gave off a different kind of energy. Like he was rehearsing something heavy. Like he knew. He turned as I approached. Mid-30s, maybe a bit older. Sharp jawline, gray coat, black gloves, and eyes that had seen too much. "You're Thad, right?" he asked, voice steady. I froze. "Who's asking?" He glanced at the apartment door, then back at me. "You don't know me, but I know your wife." My stomach twisted. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. "She's not who you think she is," he said. "I'm not here to start trouble. I'm here because I was supposed to be in room 214 last night. With her." It was like someone cracked a mirror over my head. Time slowed. I could feel my ears ringing. She told me she was married, he added, as if that made things better. But she said it was a miserable, dead marriage. That you were cold, controlling, that you didn't care about her anymore. That last part stung worse than all the rest combined. Not because it was true, but because she'd weaponized me. Turned me into a villain to justify her affair. I motioned for him to leave. I was shaking not from anger, but from disbelief. I didn't want to hear another word. But then he pulled out his phone and said, "You need to see this." Against every instinct, I looked. A photo. A blurry snapshot of her. Sitting on that same restaurant patio we'd been at the night before our dinner. With him. She wore the same red dress. Same earrings. Same cold smile. Same breadbasket. He swiped again. Another photo. The note, in her hand. She was placing it. Rehearsing it. Setting the trap. She wanted me to find it. I stepped back, nearly tripping on the sidewalk. "Why are you showing me this?" I muttered. "Because she used me to," he replied. "I thought I was helping her escape a toxic marriage. Now I realize she's the one poisoning people." And then he said something I'll never forget. "She has another man. That. Not just me. Someone closer than you think. She's playing all of us." I stood there, stunned, as he walked away, disappearing down the street like a shadow that never belonged to me in the first place. I didn't unlock my door. I didn't go inside. I just stood there, staring at the wood grain like it might split open and reveal the truth I'd been too blind to see. Because that one sentence she said at dinner? It wasn't a slip. It was a strategy. And whatever she was planning. I was only scratching the surface. I didn't go inside right away. For hours, I just sat on the steps, locked in the same position, barely blinking. I couldn't decide if I was more embarrassed or enraged. It's a strange purgatory to live in, knowing your world's falling apart but still clutching to the ruins because they're familiar. Because even betrayal feels better than loneliness when you've built your whole identity around someone else. Eventually, I forced myself through the door. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. The kind that either soothes you or strangles you, and I was definitely being strangled. I didn't call out her name. I didn't expect her to be home. But part of me hoped I'd hear the shower running or see her coat draped over the chair, just so I could confront her, shake the truth loose from her mouth like broken teeth. But it was empty. Hollow. I walked past the kitchen and caught a glimpse of the dining table, the spot where we used to sit for pancakes on Sundays. That same table where I once dropped to one knee, pulled out a ring I could barely afford, and asked her to make a life with me. The irony made my stomach ache. I went to the bedroom, moving without thought. I opened the closet, just to do something, anything that made me feel like I was still alive. That's when I saw it. A black duffel bag I didn't recognize, shoved behind our laundry hamper. I don't know what compelled me to open it. Maybe instinct. Maybe fear. Maybe some tiny voice in the back of my mind screaming, "This isn't just an affair. This is something else." Either way, I unzipped it, slowly, like it might explode. Inside were three things. First, a new passport. Not mine. Not hers. A man's. Name, Ethan Brooks. The picture showed someone I didn't know. Maybe late 20s, olive skin, neat hair. Foreign, maybe. I had no idea who he was. Second, a phone. Not a regular one. Not the one blowing up with my unread messages. This was a cheap, prepaid burner phone, the kind you only buy when you don't want to be found. Third, cash. A fat stack of hundreds wrapped with a blue rubber band. Maybe $10,000. Maybe more. I didn't count. My knees buckled. I had to sit down on the edge of the bed. Why did she have this? Who the hell was Ethan? Was she planning to run? Or worse, was this his bag? Had he been in our home? That's when the burner phone lit up. An unknown number. Just a single text. Still on for Friday? I booked the ferry. Same time. I stared at it, heart pounding. Ferry? Friday? I had no clue what that meant, but I knew one thing. I wasn't the only one she was lying to. And this wasn't just cheating anymore. This was coordinated. This was sinister. The air suddenly felt thick. The walls were closing in. I dropped the phone and stepped back, as if the bag might come alive and swallow me whole. I was shaking full body. The weight of what I didn't know was crushing. My wife wasn't just having an affair. She was orchestrating something. With multiple men. Maybe even a complete new identity. And I'd been sleeping beside her every night, clueless, while she played puppet master. I knew I couldn't confront her, not yet. Not without understanding the full scope of what she'd done. Not when she was clearly 10 steps ahead. So I did something that felt both pathetic and necessary. I took photos of everything. The passport. The money. The phone. I repacked it all exactly as I'd found it. Put the bag back in the closet, precisely where it was. And then I sat in the living room in total darkness, waiting. Not for her to come home, but for myself to decide whether I was strong enough to see this through. I wasn't looking for revenge. Not yet. But I was looking for the truth. And I had a feeling Friday would be the day everything cracked wide open. I didn't sleep again. Just sat there in the dark, one leg bouncing nervously, the ticking of the wall clock becoming a kind of torture. I kept asking myself how far down the rabbit hole she'd gone. Was it just about another man? Or was I looking at something deeper, something criminal? The cash. The burner phone. The name I didn't recognize. It was like I'd walked into someone else's life. Some stranger's nightmare. And yet it all smelled like her. Her perfume was still on the throw blanket. Her half-empty tea mug was by the sink. Her red lipstick had stained the rim. It was like the scene of a crime, staged too perfectly to feel real. At 4:22 a.m., I picked up the burner phone again. I wasn't going to reply. I knew better, but something told me to look deeper. I didn't unlock it, just swiped to the left and went to the call history. There were only a few numbers. No names saved. No incoming calls. But one number, the one that sent the message about Friday, had been called every single day for 2 weeks. Morning, noon, and night. Always for less than 3 minutes. I wrote the number down. I didn't want to call it from my phone. I wasn't even sure I wanted to know who was on the other end. But the curiosity gnawed at me until it became unbearable. So I walked 2 blocks to the gas station, bought a SIM card, popped it into a prepaid device I used years ago for international travel, and stood in the alley behind the store, staring at the screen like it might explode the second I dialed. And then I hit call. 2 rings. 3. Then a voice. Calm. Deep. Male. Yeah. I didn't speak. The man waited. Hello? He asked again. Still, I said nothing. I just listened. In the background, I heard a foghorn. Birds. Waves. Wherever he was, it was near water. You there? He repeated, with just a slight edge of suspicion now. I ended the call. Heart thudding. I felt like I'd crossed a line, the kind you don't come back from. I leaned against the brick wall, phone still in hand, trying to slow my breath. This wasn't just an affair. This was movement. Logistics. Coordination. A ferry? A new passport? Who the hell plans an island rendezvous with burner phones and briefcases of money unless they're running from something? Back at the apartment, I noticed something strange for the first time. Her laptop was missing. We shared that laptop. It wasn't hers or mine. We used it for bills, trip planning, grocery lists. But it was gone. I knew I hadn't moved it. And she never took it to work. She had a company-issued MacBook. That meant she'd taken it deliberately. Possibly that night. I felt sick. The pieces weren't just falling apart. They were rearranging themselves into a new shape I didn't understand. And then, right on schedule, she walked through the front door. Like nothing was wrong. Wearing the same coat I'd bought her last Christmas. Tossing her keys in the bowl. Kicking off her shoes with a little grunt, like she always did. Oh, you're home, she said, not surprised, more like mildly inconvenienced. I didn't answer. I just watched her. She looked up, forced a smile. You look like hell. Didn't sleep? Not much, I finally muttered. She raised an eyebrow, walked past me to the fridge. You shouldn't sit in the dark like that. It's depressing. I wanted to ask her everything. Right then. Demand answers. Pull the bag out of the closet and throw it on the floor. Play the voice on speakerphone. But I didn't. Because something in her face said she was ready for it. Like she was expecting a confrontation. Prepared for it. And I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. Instead, I said something I didn't expect to say. Something that even surprised me. You're free Friday night, right? She froze. Just for half a second. Then turned slowly. What's Friday? I smiled as calmly as I could. I thought we could take a trip. Just us. She blinked. Where? I'll surprise you, I said, walking past her. Pack light. We'll take the ferry. I didn't need her to confess. I just needed her to say yes. Because now I had a plan. And by the end of Friday night, I wasn't going to be the only one sitting in the dark, staring at the truth. She said yes. With a soft, uncertain laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes, but she said it anyway. Maybe she thought she'd won. That I was too weak to leave. That I was still wrapped around her finger like some sad little thread. That I had offered her a trip to save our crumbling marriage. I didn't correct her. I didn't blink. I just nodded and told her to dress warm. The ferry terminal was 2 towns away. I picked the time carefully, Friday evening, 7:15 departure. It was far enough from the city that she'd have to rely on me to get there, and late enough that the darkness would work in my favor. I bought 2 round-trip tickets. Only one would be used. The bag in the closet was still there, untouched. I checked it each night like a nervous spy afraid of being discovered. Still the passport. Still the money. Still the phone. Still the note, folded neatly, as if waiting to be used again. I felt like I was living in someone else's heist movie, except I wasn't the hero or even the victim. I was just the guy too slow to realize he'd been written out of the script. Friday came. She didn't ask questions. She packed one small suitcase, said she'd arranged some things at work to buy herself a long weekend. I bet she had. I wondered how many lies she had to stack on top of each other just to keep her double life standing. I wondered if they ever fell. The car ride was nearly silent. She scrolled her phone. I drove, eyes fixed on the road, mind spinning with thoughts I hadn't dared say aloud. Who was Ethan? Was the man on the burner phone connected to him, or was he Ethan? Was this about money? Escape? Something worse? The ferry rocked slightly in the water as we boarded. She wore a gray scarf wrapped twice around her neck, the same one I gave her the year it snowed on our anniversary. She leaned on the railing, staring at the horizon like she was chasing something just out of reach. "You okay?" she asked finally, glancing at me. I nodded. "Just thinking." "About us?" she asked, her voice soft. I turned to her. "No. About you." She frowned at that, but didn't answer. And then I saw it. She was checking her phone again, quickly, trying to be discreet. Her thumb hovered over the screen. A message popped up, but she tilted the screen away before I could catch it. Too smooth. Too calculated. We docked 35 minutes later. The island was sleepy, cold, mostly empty this time of year. The few travelers disembarking seemed to disappear into the fog. I let her lead for a while. She thought we were just strolling, maybe killing time before a dinner reservation that didn't exist. I kept behind her by a step or two, watching. That's when she slowed down, pulled out her phone again, glanced around, and smiled. Not at me. At a man walking toward us. Brown coat. Black gloves. It was the same voice I'd heard through the burner phone. The same presence I'd felt on the other end of that alley call. And now, in full daylight, he was walking right toward my wife. She froze. Just slightly. Her eyes flicked to me. She hadn't expected me to still be there. That was the moment she realized she had miscalculated. "Friend of yours?" I asked, calm as glass. The man hesitated, unsure what to say. He wasn't as confident in person as he was on the phone. That gave me the tiniest satisfaction. But this wasn't a confrontation. Not yet. "I don't think we've met," I said to him. "But I've heard your voice." That fairy text? Real poetic. Marla, still not saying anything, turned slowly, lips parted, caught between fear and fury. Thad, I can explain," she began, but I held up a hand. No, don't. Don't insult me with explanations. You planned to disappear with him, didn't you? That's what this is. That bag. The passport. The cash. The ferry. You wanted me to find it because you needed me to react. To disappear first so you could play the victim. But I didn't. And now here we are. Together. On a dock. With your shadow in the flesh. The man stepped forward. "Look, I didn't know." "I'm not talking to you," I snapped, my voice finally cracking. She looked like she wanted to run, but I wasn't there to trap her. I reached into my jacket, pulled out a small envelope, and handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked, voice shaking. "Your future," I said. "It's my signature. On the divorce papers. I left them dated but signed on purpose. I signed them this morning. You can file them Monday. Or don't. I don't care anymore. Either way, you get what you want. Freedom. And I get mine." She took the envelope slowly, her hands trembling. "You're just giving up?" "No," I said, stepping back toward the ferry ramp. "I'm walking away before I rot any further in your games." Then I turned to the man, her so-called mystery, her other half, her fairy date fantasy. "Good luck," I told him. "You've just inherited the most beautiful liar I've ever met." I walked away, back toward the ferry. The wind colder now, sharper, cutting clean through the fog. I didn't look back, but I knew that for the first time in a long time, neither did she. The ferry ride back felt like exile and liberation wrapped in the same wind. I sat alone on the upper deck, eyes burning from the cold, hands in my pockets with nothing to hold except the absence of her. I didn't cry. That had already been exhausted in invisible doses over too many nights, Too many showers, too many long drives with the music turned up to drown out the fact that I was slowly disappearing inside myself. When we docked, I didn't rush. I waited until everyone else had stepped off, like I was waiting for gravity to adjust itself, to make sure the world had truly shifted. Because it had. I wasn't someone's husband anymore. Not really. I was something else now. Something quieter, sharper, maybe even colder. Back at the apartment, I half expected her to have followed me back somehow. She was that unpredictable, but it was empty. The kind of empty that echoes. I dropped my keys in the bowl and stood still for several minutes, just listening. No sounds, no movement, just the faint hum of the fridge and the weight of the bag in the closet, still there, untouched, like a tomb sealed before its curse could escape. I didn't go near it. Not yet. Instead, I went to the drawer where we used to keep the backup hard drive. Years ago, I'd set it up to automatically pull weekly backups from both our laptops, just in case of data loss. Or in this case, identity loss. I wasn't sure if it still worked, but I needed to know what she had been hiding, and now that her laptop was gone, this was my only shot. It took hours to decrypt and dig through what I needed. Her folders were clean, sterile, too clean, like someone had wiped them with precision. But no one ever scrubs everything. I found a folder called Liberty South 22 buried under layers of meaningless names. Inside it, documents in her voice, but not in her name. Financial spreadsheets, travel itineraries, scans of foreign banking statements. One PDF had a line that made me freeze. Relocation authorized. Travel confirmation to Bimini Secure. Subject, E. Brooks will assume identity transfer. She wasn't just cheating. She wasn't just lying. She was engineering an escape. Carefully, thoroughly, probably for months. And it got worse. One file had an audio note. I almost didn't open it. My thumb hovered over it for several long seconds before I tapped play. It was her voice. Soft, emotionless. Phase 2 begins after the drop. Make sure Carter doesn't interfere. I've kept him under enough sedation to keep his suspicion low, but if he pushes, initiate fallback. Use Ethan. Sedation? My stomach twisted. My throat closed. For the past few months, she'd insisted I take nightly sleep vitamins, a new wellness thing she was into. She'd mixed them into tea. I thought nothing of it. I was tired anyway. And now? I wasn't sure what was real anymore. Had she drugged me to slow my thinking? To keep me docile? Malleable? I sat frozen in that chair for over an hour, replaying her voice until my battery nearly died. This wasn't just betrayal. This was manipulation. Strategic. Surgical. I wasn't just cheated on. I was a project. A stage. A piece of her escape plan she intended to erase. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I sent the folder to a private email. Changed all the passwords. Wrote down a list of everything I'd discovered. And then I grabbed the black duffel from the closet. I drove 2 towns over, where the man from the dock had no reason to look for me, where Marla wouldn't think to check. And I turned everything over to a lawyer I barely trusted, because at that point, trust was extinct. He looked over the evidence in silence for nearly 30 minutes. Then he looked up and said, "You realize this is bigger than divorce, right?" "I don't care," I replied, my voice barely holding together. "I just want out before I disappear completely." He nodded slowly, carefully placing each photo and document back in the folder. "She's not just leaving you. She's leaving herself." And I believed him. Because I'd seen it too. She didn't want freedom. She wanted vanishing. And I was just another person to erase on her way out. I don't remember falling asleep that night. I only remember waking up with my heart already racing. The folder was still on the table. The duffel bag was gone. I handed over, finally, like an infection I'd cut out of myself. But the damage was still there. Deep. Quiet. Invisible. The kind that rewrites you. The lawyer had promised to handle it discreetly. He said he'd seen cases like this, though he didn't explain what like this really meant. Financial fraud? Faked identities? Runaway spouses with foreign bank accounts and burner phones? I wasn't sure anymore where betrayal ended and crime began. I tried to move on with my day. I really did. I even made coffee, like some version of normal might return. But the sound of the spoon clinking in the cup felt too loud, like an alarm in a bombed shelter. I threw it across the sink and just stood there, shaking. Around 2 p.m., I got the call. Not from the lawyer. Not from her. It was a blocked number. Against every instinct, I answered. A woman's voice came through the line. Calm. Clear. Not familiar. "Is this that?" I hesitated. Who is this? I don't have much time, she said quickly. I know about Marla, and I know what she did to you. I froze. The phone burned against my ear. Who are you? I asked again, my voice almost breaking. You don't need my name, she said. You just need to know she's done this before. Silence. Her words sat in the air like ice on bare skin. She's changed her identity twice, the woman continued. Florida in 2014. Then Montana. Both times, she found someone stable, quiet, easy to manipulate. She drains them, frames them, leaves them. I was almost one of them. My brother wasn't so lucky. Wait, what are you saying? Are you law enforcement? A lawyer? No, she replied coldly. I'm her mistake. She thought I was someone she could use. She was wrong. My grip on the phone tightened. I tracked her down, the woman continued. I've been watching. Waiting. She doesn't know I exist anymore. But she's planning something. And you're not the only one she's marked. You're talking about Ethan? There was a pause. She told him she was pregnant. That landed like a brick in my chest. Pregnant? But she's not, the woman added, her voice like steel. She's using the story to tie him down, make him take the fall for whatever she's doing next. He's just a pawn. Like you were. Why are you telling me this? Because I want her to stop, she whispered. And because I think you're finally the one who sees her. The line went dead. I stood there, staring at the phone screen, my ears ringing in absolute silence. No proof. No name. Just a phantom voice from the dark corners of her past. But everything she said, everything fit. Too precisely to be coincidence. I went to the old drawer where Marla used to keep jewelry. Things she never wore anymore. I don't even know why I opened it. Maybe instinct. Maybe fate. At the very bottom, beneath tangled necklaces and a crushed box of earrings, I found it. A bracelet. Silver. Thin. Worn down. But on the inside, engraved in tiny, almost hidden lettering. Essay, always. Not mine. Not a gift from me. I never knew it existed. I turned it over again and again in my hand, staring at the letters, the curve of the metal. My mind raced. Essay? Was it a name? Initials of someone before me? Someone like that woman's brother? Or someone after? The idea made me sick. But more than anything, it made me ready. I didn't want to trap Marla. I didn't want revenge. Not like in the movies. I just wanted the truth burned out under a spotlight so bright she could never hide again. Not from me. Not from the law. Not from herself. And if I had to drag her truth out into the daylight by its teeth, I would. Because something told me she hadn't left town yet. And the final move would be hers. But the end? That would be mine. I didn't sleep that night either. But this time, it wasn't because I was broken. It was because I was ready. Focused. Calm in the way a person becomes when they finally realize the fire didn't destroy them, it forged them. Saturday morning came quietly. No word from Marla. No sign of Ethan. No strange calls. But I knew this was the calm before the storm. She hadn't vanished. Not yet. Her pattern, according to the woman who called me, was always the same. Seduce, isolate, take, vanish. But this time, someone was watching. Me. I opened the envelope I had prepared 3 days earlier. Inside were copies of everything. The folder, the photo of the burner phone, the forged documents, the audio file, even the picture of the bracelet with the initials engraved. I labeled it simply, for law enforcement, if I disappear. I delivered one copy to the attorney. Another I dropped at the front desk of a local journalist's office. The third, I mailed to a friend out of state with instructions to open it if I ever stopped responding. It felt dramatic, maybe even paranoid, but nothing about Marla's world had been normal. And I wasn't going to be her final victim. By late afternoon, I received a message from an unknown number. We need to talk. 1 hour. Our spot. No name. But I didn't need one. Our spot was an old coffee shop we used to sneak off to when we were still pretending to be in love. I didn't reply. I just got in the car. When I walked in, she was already there. Sitting by the window. Black coat. Neutral lipstick. No emotion. She didn't stand. She didn't flinch. But her eyes searched mine like she couldn't quite figure out what I knew. Or how much. Hi, she said softly, almost like nothing had happened. I sat across from her. Didn't order. Didn't smile. I thought you were gone, she continued. I said. But then I realized something. You can only run from your name so many times before someone gives it back to you. She blinked. What does that mean? I reached into my coat pocket and slid a flash drive across the table. That's everything. Proof of who you really are. What you've done. The aliases, the bank accounts, even your sweet little fairy plans. You left breadcrumbs, Marla. Too many. And now you're cornered. She looked down at the flash drive and back at me. So what now? You gonna ruin me? I shook my head. No. I'm going to free myself. And maybe, somehow, in a strange way, you too. She didn't speak for a long moment. The silence wasn't awkward. It was surgical. Like a silence she'd used 100 times before to gauge fear, hesitation, leverage. But this time, she didn't find any. You're not the man I thought you were, she whispered finally. No, I replied. I'm not the man you created. I'm the man that survived him. I stood up, ready to leave her there in that booth, alone, without the power she'd carried like a crown for years. Then I paused. You can run again, or you can stop. Your move. But if you disappear again, you won't stay hidden. Not this time. She looked away. And in that second, for the first time since this all began, she looked small. Not weak. Just empty. Like she built so many fake lives that she forgot how to live one honestly. I walked out. Didn't look back. That night, I slept for 12 straight hours. In the weeks that followed, my lawyer received a quiet email from someone in her former network. Marla didn't leave the country. She turned herself in under her real name. The one I never knew. Turns out, the flash drive did more than scare her. It cracked whatever illusion she'd been trying to protect. Maybe it wasn't redemption, but it was something close. As for me, I moved, left the apartment, started over in a town where no one knew her name or mine. I took up writing again, got a dog, went hiking, laughed for the first time in months at a joke I didn't even understand. Healing didn't come all at once. It arrived in pieces, like puzzle parts dropped into my life at random. But one day, I realized something. I no longer thought about her every morning. And when that happened, I finally understood what peace actually feels like. Because sometimes the greatest revenge is simply reclaiming yourself.